Good day, students. Welcome to our last module for this semester. The objective of this module is for us to be able to understand contemporary issues given historical context. And our topic is political dynasty. Question is, what is a political dynasty? A political dynasty is usually related to elected positions. It may happen that a singular family would occupy a position for several generations, or they might be occupying multi-positions in just one generation. So manotice natin, they have the same family names. For example, in a particular town or in a particular city, then they are running at the same time. Or they might have been utilizing or using the same position but with different generations. For example, mauna yung tatay, sumunod yung anak, or mauna yung tatay, yung asawa, because there are no other choice in that particular election. Now, what is the historical basis of political dynasties? Bakit tayo merong political dynasties? Makikita natin yan, yung historical context niyan, in our Philippine history. So if you remember, during the pre-colonial times, we were governed by Maharlikas. The Maharlikas are our local leaders. Now, when the Spaniards came, the Spaniards used these Maharlikas and transformed them into what we call the Principalia class. The Principalia class governed the Philippines, but they only governed the lower part of our society. Most of them are appointed as gobernadorcillos in their towns. Now, the question is, why appoint members of the Principalia to the government? There are several reasons. Number one is for the Spanish government to be able to pacify the members of the Maharlika. Siyempre, they colonized us, no? And the Maharlicans might fight against the Spaniards. Okay? So they might revolt against the Spaniards. So in order to pacify them, they made them part of the government. Siyempre, no, if they are part of the government, they will not go against the Spaniards. The second reason is that the Maharlicans, who were our leaders at that time, would want to maintain their status in the society as leaders. Although they may not be the leaders that we are looking at, no, before the Spaniards came, but at least, no, they have a position in the government. So notice that these positions were given to prominent families. Okay? So families, and we all know that political dynasties, the basis would be on the family. Okay? Now, another question that we have to answer is, why do we have to maintain a political dynasty? Bakit kailangan na meron tayong political dynasty at bakit itong mga politiko natin are actually engaging into political dynasties? Now, what you are looking at right now in this slide are several political dynasties in the Philippines. No, you have the Binays, the Estradas, Marcoses, Dutertes, and even the Macapagals. Or right now they're using the family name Arroyo. Okay? And of course, most of them are actually based on a singular family, and we will discuss that later on. But the question is, why do they maintain political dynasties? First is that they want to protect their familiar business or their status, similar with the Principalia. Okay? It's very difficult to enter into politics, and the only way that they can protect their interests is when they are in power or in position. Siyempre, di ba? If you're already there, how can you protect your interest? And many of these political dynasties own a lot of lands and businesses in the Philippines. And the only way to protect your land, your interest, and your businesses is to be able to maintain your status in the political sphere. So, of course, you have to maintain a political dynasty. Second is that it's very difficult to establish political capital. Okay? Another term would be political opportunity. Okay? You may have the money, but you are not well known in your place, you will not win. You might be well known, but you don't have money, you will also not win. Therefore, if you have already entered the political arena and you have already won, okay, a position in that particular arena, then it would be easier for you to maintain that political capital. So medyo mas madali nang makapasok. That's why it would be very difficult, no, for a first-timer to enter into politics without political backing, without political resources, or without political capital. Okay? So, alam natin, no, maraming magagaling sa Pilipinas, but none of them can actually win in an election without political capital. So for me, or for any of you who are already in the position, of course, no, you don't want to relinquish that position. You have to you have to maintain that. Therefore, okay, you have to maintain your political dynasty. Okay. Now, we will show you, no, a political map. Okay. Okay. So on my background, okay, you see this. This is just one of the political maps we have in the Philippines. This is a presidential political map. We have a senatorial political map. We also have a congressional political map. This is just a map of our presidents. Now, you will observe that those in the yellow, those are our presidents, they are actually interconnected. Okay? In some way or another, either by marriage or by affinity, you would observe that they are interconnected. That means that they belong to the same, originally to the same family. So you have our current president there, okay? And you also have our first president in this particular map. So you observe they are interconnected. How much more with our senators and our congressmen? You don't have to mention your family names to say that they are actually interconnected. Okay. Now, there are actually several types of political dynasties. Okay? We have what we call thin dynasty and a fat dynasty. As defined earlier, sabi natin, okay, pwedeng mangyari that they are occupying one position for several generations, or they might be occupying multi-positions in one generation. If you occupy one position, okay, in several generations, okay, like for example, mayor, no? Unang tumakbo yung tatay, sumunod yung asawa, sumunod yung anak, sumunod yung kapatid, then that is what we call a thin dynasty. So one position cuts across several generations. Now, a fat dynasty is when multiple members of the family would run and enter into politics and win multiple positions. And that is what we call a fat dynasty. Now, based on studies, they might say that thin dynasty is much appreciated than fat dynasty. Kasi daw sa thin dynasty, anyway, isa lang naman yan, so hindi masyado nagdo-dominate in a particular political environment. Ang medyo delikado daw is what we call the fat dynasty. Bakit? Kasi sila yung nakaupo, therefore they can actually control everything. From budget to finances. So pwedeng magkaroon ng cases of corruption, pero walang nagagawa yung mga tao. It's because they belong to the same family. No? They protect each other. So many would say that if there's a political dynasty in the Philippines, would rather have a thin dynasty than a fat dynasty. However, political dynasties are not actually all bad. No? Di naman talaga sila automatic pag may dynasty, medyo masama na yon. No? Meron din namang mga good things about a political dynasty. Okay? So, for example, no, hindi lang naman sa Pilipinas, no, the Philippines is not the only country with political dynasties. No? At medyo laganap to sa buong mundo. And yung mga medyo famous na political dynasties, of course, no, dun sa picture na nakikita nyo, we have one, no, Singapore, we have Lee Kuan Yew, na notice natin, no, were very developed, no, was developed well by a dynasty. Same with the United States. No, nakita nyo sa picture, no, that's the picture of George W. Bush, anak ni George H. Bush. Okay? Although both of them involved in a war with Iraq, but we don't notice na US was actually doing well. No? Singapore is actually doing well. In the Philippines, we cannot tell, no, if we are doing well. No? Some people in Davao City would say na, well, the Dutertes are doing well in Davao City, but others would say na, well, they control Davao City, and it's not actually very good, especially for a democratic country. Now, why don't we have anti-political dynasty law? Okay? Now, that's very ironic because under our Constitution, under Article 2, Section 26, it specifically states that the state shall guarantee equal access to opportunities for public service and prohibit political dynasties as may be defined by law. Now, take note of the term of the words as may be defined by law. That is the problem. Because in order for us to have a political dynasty provision, anti-political dynasty provision, it must be passed by Congress, no? Maging batas muna bago tayo magkaroon ng anti-dynasty. Itong nasa Constitution, it's not self-executory. No? Ibig sabihin, kailangan pa talaga na may mapasa tayong batas before natin mapagbawal itong political dynasties. However, no, since time immemorial, no, na we have our own Congress, never had we had a chance to pass an anti-political dynasty law. Bakit? First and foremost, Philippine elections is actually dominated by personality, okay, and by patronage. Pag sinabi natin personality, that means that we are looking more into the person rather than doon sa issue. No? Ano ba yung kanilang plano for the Philippines? Sa atin, hindi. Titingnan natin, sino ba yan, kilala ba yan, maalala ko ba yung pangalan niya pagdating ng eleksyon. So that's what you call personality-based. Maganda ba yan, mabait ba yan? Nothing to do with the qualifications of the candidate or the issues that they are trying to advocate. Okay? Second is that elections in the Philippines is patronage-driven. Ibig sabihin, binoboto lang natin yung mga kandidato na sa tingin natin medyo may makukuha tayong benefits. Okay? So, kaya sa atin medyo malakas yung tinatawag na vote buying or itong casework. Ibig sabihin, tinitingnan natin ngayon kung meron bang pakinabang itong kandidato sa atin personally. Okay? Like for example, kung may makikitang maraming projects yung isang kandidato, you would say na, ay maganda to kasi maraming projects yung kandidato, iboboto ko to. Okay? Not necessarily based on issues. Hindi natin tinitingnan no kung meron ba itong meron ba itong issues of corruption para sa atin, ano ba yung benefit na makukuha natin from the particular candidate. Okay? Another reason bakit wala tayong anti-political dynasty law because dapat yung itong batas na to should be passed by Congress, no? Dapat ipinasa ng Congress, pero hindi nga pinapasa ng Congress because more than 80% of our congressmen and senators are members of political dynasties. Siyempre, no, would they pass a law that will eliminate their positions or their hold into power? Okay? Now, bakit hindi nangyayari na hindi natin kailangan itong mga political dynasties sa Kongreso? Bakit hindi tayo maghanap ng ibang choice? Another problem is that we don't have a stable party system. Wala tayong mga real political parties. For us, during elections, you'd notice, candidates will just join political parties based on the benefits that they will get from those political parties. Now, kung wala silang makukuhang benefit from a political party, they will make their own political parties so that they will be able to run in a position sa ating government. So, kahit anong gawin natin, okay, hindi tayo makakapasa ng anti-political dynasty law because it's controlled by political dynasties. So, I hope you learned again today. And should you have any questions, okay, pareho pa rin, tulad ng dati, hindi na kailangan i-memorize yan. Okay? Just ask your questions during your synchronous class or post your questions doon sa chat box ng inyong modules or courseware nyo. Okay? So, I hope that you had a very fruitful semester and I hope that you'll be able to apply all the things that you've learned in this class. So, once again, thank you very much and have a nice day.